Yeah, I was there last night. Absolutely amazing game, amazing atmosphere. I felt like Everton were absolutely hopeless. We weren't much better, but it looked like we had a bit more about us. And yeah, I'm just trying not to get too carried away because we've had 3 or 4 opportunities this season where we're 1 game away from getting out the bottom 3, and we've fluffed it on every one. And it's the teams we're playing like Leeds, like Brentford, like Brighton, where we seem to fluff it. So let's not assume that Norwich is a given on Sunday.
Sure. But unlike a lot of Evertonians this morning, Simon, who are saying, Frank, why Frank? You lot trust in Dyche, do you?
I think there's a lot more Dyche out fans than there has been in years gone by. But I think the majority are still with him. I'm definitely still with him. I'd have a statue built of him at Turf Moor tomorrow for what he's done for the club. But yeah, it's still squeaky bum time. 9 games to go, and I hope we can stay in the big time.
Gosh, it's hard, Simon, to imagine. To you, Simon, not my Simon, but it's hard to imagine that there are some people who would want Dyche out. Really? Is that the case?
Exactly. Football fan. I think it's just football fans this day and age. It's crazy. People just seem to doubt. They're starting to doubt him with his substitutions, with it. But like I say, the things he's done for my club are out of this world, and I think he'll never ever be sacked. If he wants to go,
sure,
he'll walk on his own terms. Yeah.
Sure. Simon, do you survive? Is it Premier League football next season?
Yes, I'm going yes. Let's go yes.
Go on. You made the call. Let's see it out. Simon says yes. I mean, it's good to hear that. There's a football fan who sticks by his team, sticks by his manager. Yeah. That's what you told me you loved at Palace. Palace fans, when you were there, would always turn up, rain, hail or shine, and get behind them.
Of course. And also the other side of the argument is if fans are emotional, if you don't have emotion in sport, then you don't have much of a support base that's really trying to push your football club forward. Some of it's irrational, some of it's illogical, most of it's directly after a game, but that is their entitlement. I don't want it to be overly destructive and to move into territories where it becomes something that's quite damaging. But fans have the right to be emotional in their views because it's an emotional game. What other business sells somebody something, it's dreadful, and then gets them to pay for it the following week? Emotion does that. Yeah. Emotion does that, so you must accept that.
Yeah, when you say it like that, you're right, Simon. Paul, big Evertonian. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, gents. How are we?
Oh, listen, it's boiling up now, Paul, isn't it? And it's not boiling up in your favour. What's your take on it all?
It's sickening at the minute, but listen to the fella earlier regarding blaming Lampard. It's nothing to do with Lampard. You're not getting a tune out of any of them players. There's been a few managers there. Benitez, Jordan, Simon was saying was the wrong. Yeah, he was in the first place. But even before that, I just think it's been coming over the last 5 years. The recruitment's been terrible. The quality of play that we've got in has been terrible, and it's just been on a decline. And the likes of, Duncan Ferguson, he's a great servant to the club, and he has jumped in there a few times for us. But, he's been a coach for the forwards for the past 5 or 6 seasons. He hasn't got a tune out of any of them. And we keep getting this thing at Everton, the likes of Tom Davies, Calvert-Lewin. These are Evertonians type of thing. And it's all right, they're Evertonians, so we'll keep them at the club. But the quality isn't there, and the recruitment, and it's always been coming. And I think everyone thinks, Everton will never go down. And God forbid we don't. But them players, getting a tune out of them players, it's impossible.
I mean, it's impossible. It's impossible, Paul, is it? Impossible is the word you use.
It is. I think it is. I think it's been coming. I think, they just put your soul down the way they play. I mean, if I was that bad at my job, I'd be sacked by now. And it's just so disheartening. And like Simon said earlier, Dignay's gone. We've got Malenko in. Not good enough. John Joe Kenny, not good enough. Holgate, not good enough. This is a championship side. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, not good enough. He had half a good season, and now he thinks he's a world beater. And, don't get me wrong, players can do what they want in their spare time, but his most important job is to play for Everton Football Club.
But also, Paul,
for them.
I mean, I'm not going to give Frank a pass because he knew what he had when he walked in the door, and his job was to make it better. And I don't think that group of players, I think you've overspent on players and you've bought some players that aren't good enough, but I still think you're a better unit than your current position and your current performances. I don't think you'll get anywhere near the top 10 with this group of players, but I don't think you're a bottom 3 side or a bottom 4 side, irrespective of some of the purchases and the overpayment.
They lost 3-2 last night.
I know, but that's about spirit, that's about backbone, that's about organisation. And this is where Frank is coming into question, because people are questioning his ability to organise. If you've got to be able to stop teams, if you're in a game, better to have drawn that game than lost that game. And if you're in a situation where you know what you've got, you know you can't rely on these players to do certain things, then shut the door. Shut the door. Everton fans cannot tolerate a performance. I watched the game against Palace. I couldn't care less Palace in my previous team, right? It's not about Palace.
No.
It's about Everton chucking it in after 20 minutes in front of 4,000 or 5,000 Everton fans that went to watch a cup quarter-final. And those players just wilted. They capitulated under pressure, and the moment adversity came, they fell apart. And Frank has got to fix that.
Paul, before you leave us, what's the mood of Evertonians then going to Goodison for the game against United this weekend?
I mean, people, the next thing will be, we're at home, we've got United. Yeah, we because we're at home, we get beat. I can't see us beating United because they've got that quality that can beat the team. You never know with United. They've had a terrible season, but, it's the same old cliche, playing Everton, though. I mean, it's just a quick question I want to ask Simon regarding Bill Kenwright.
Yeah.
Simon, because obviously you've been an owner yourself. What is his position at the club? As in, obviously Moshiri owns the majority. Kenwright's still there.
Yeah.
I've got his own seat, stuff like that. Now, some people are blaming Bill. I know he's a mad Evertonian and all that, but I just wondered, what is his situation at the club? I mean, he's been there a long time, and I just don't get his situation. I'm not blaming
Bill
him.
Cops for a lot of flack.
Yeah, he does.
And we don't think he should. Bill wanted Moyes back, and Moshiri wanted Ancelotti.
A lot of people, but Moshiri's making the decisions. Bill has been blamed for a lot over the years. Some of it has resonance and some of it doesn't. Whatever Everton didn't do was Bill's fault. When it did do something, it wasn't necessarily Bill's success. Now, Bill is sat there in a situation, he loves Everton Football Club. It's always been probably underfinanced in comparison with the other football clubs that Everton wants to compete with. He's got Moshiri in. Moshiri is the problem. Moshiri and those around him, those that are advising him, whether it's Kia Jarapshan or whoever is around him that are influencing Moshiri's thinking. Silva was never the manager. Ancelotti was never a solution. He was always a Hollywood appointment. I remember talking to someone, I'm not going to name him because it will embarrass him, that a leading European football person turned around and said, Ancelotti is going to be out of the door at Everton as soon as something better comes along. And that wasn't the basis for taking him there. So it's Moshiri's the problem, and Kenwright is just sitting in the background trying to guide Farhad, trying to make sure he has some influence, but he has no leverage.
Yeah.
He has no leverage, Bill.
Listen, Paul, I want to thank you for your time and your call. Here's Gareth, who's a Derby County fan, but wants to throw his hat in the ring. Gareth, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, so Frank Lampard's having some trouble at Everton, isn't he?
Just a bit, yeah.
Well, to be honest, it doesn't really surprise me because I know Frank had what seemed to be a good season at Derby, but the reality is it was his first season in management and he was given a massive budget at Derby. And, I don't think he finished his apprenticeship because what he did...
Agreed.
He spent a lot of money on players' wages at Derby and they scraped into the playoffs that season. I don't know, we had this trouble with Middlesbrough because we just went above Middlesbrough towards the end. Then Derby had a fantastic performance in the semi-final.
Against Leeds, yeah.
Against Leeds.
Yeah.
Now, that was the match of the decade for Derby fans. And the players really pulled it out on that night. Now, all the fans were looking forward to the final, but after that semi-final, Frank Lampard took all the players out to celebrate. Now, he should have said to them, the job's not done. He also had his mind on going to Chelsea because he'd been wooed by Chelsea. I think he should have stayed at Derby,
I agree.
Finished the job properly.
I agree.
His team selection at Wembley was dreadful because he left Jack Marriott on the bench and he put Mason Bennett up front. Now, every Derby County supporter, and there were 40,000 in the stadium on that day, their hearts sank when they saw the team sheet because they knew what was going to happen. And that was down to Frank Lampard. So,
okay.
I think...
You think he should have stayed at Derby and finished his
I think he's right.
apprenticeship
I think he's absolutely right. And I said that at the time. He shouldn't have gone to Chelsea. Was a draw because of the relationship with them. He didn't have the right to get the Chelsea job. He didn't have the credentials to get it. I still think Frank will go on and be a good manager, but I thought at the time, and I said it at the time, he needs to learn his trade. The lure of Chelsea is too big for him, and everyone can take these decisions, but it's about taking them at the right time.
Remember, this will be clipped up and used against you if it doesn't work out the way. Will he go on and be a great manager with Everton?
Well, That's a difficult one because Everton are in a really difficult moment across the board in terms of their recruitment policies, in terms of their financial landscape to be able to change things, because they're still going to be under guidelines next year about what they can and can't buy. They're with an ownership model that doesn't know what it's doing and hasn't learned anything in 6 years. So with that in mind, it's a difficult moment for him. I would say it's a pick 'em in terms of it could go either way for Frank in this instance.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.